Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's edition of Horse's Mouth Live, the Extraordinary Advisor Show. My name is Ellen Rogin, and as always, I'm here with guests to provide you with great information to help you in every area of your business. And I'm so excited. We have Lisa Dad back. Lisa was on right at the start of the quarantine and shutdown, talking about can we sell now in these times? And we've all kind of settled in to, yes, we can still do business and do it virtually, but we're really going to talk about how to sell in ways that you feel comfortable with, that's really in alignment with who you are and not feel icky about it. So, and Lisa's so great. I've had consultations with her and I love her advice. And whenever I get to talk to her, I put it into action right away. And I know you will too. So let me give you a little bit about Lisa's background. So Lisa spent 15 years in corporate industry and healthcare and mastering sales and management, and really honed her skills there. And then realized that she was called to do something different and deeper, and has really taken all that information and created her business where she works with people directly in a course to do training and development for organizations and corporations as well. She's working with a diagnostic tool called Soul Language that I'm really excited to learn more about. It's something Lisa's shared with me just a little bit about, but I'm curious about what that is. And Lisa works with innovative leaders to integrate the awareness of who they are at a core and to use this in the way that they do business. So Lisa, welcome. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Yes, thanks for having me back again, Ellen. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, and I know that sales, I would say most financial advisors know that they have to sell and it's part of business, but they might not think they're really good at selling, or part of it might feel icky for them. I know when I had my practice and when I first started in practice, I took the Sandler sales system because I was like, I do not know how to sell. And I guess in some ways it gave me confidence, but it really wasn't aligned with who I am as a person. And somehow, probably not so deliberately at the beginning of my career, I eased into a way to have conversations with people that didn't feel icky, but I always felt like I could still be better at that. I still do feel like I could be better at that. And I know you do sales training for, as I said, organizations, and also work with people individually, but you also say that no one needs to be a salesperson. So how does that jive?
Yeah, you've got so much in that first sentence that I want to talk to. And let's speak, first of all, I love that you said that you started to learn how to have the conversation. And I start there with a lot of people because we often think that sales is a presentation. Like I do a sales presentation to people. And the second you can switch that around to go, this is actually a conversation we're having, is the moment that things can start to change. So I probably, I forget the name that you said, what was the sales system that you went to?
It was Sandler sales system.
Sandler sales system.
They had no pain, no gain. That was part of it. I don't remember what the pain part was, maybe all of it. And they may still be around, and I'm sure they've evolved, so I don't want to diss them. But this was many years ago that I was involved in that.
Yeah, and there was probably, we don't really need the name because there's probably like insert blank name that people have gone into to learn sales systems. And when I work with people, I'm not doing a system with people. I'm really helping them tap into exactly who they are. And once we get into their natural energy, how do we have a really effective enrolling conversation from that space? So it's not so much a system, but it is almost a connection, if you will, with your own energy and recognizing who is sitting in front of you so that we can have a dialogue, a conversation to see if what it is that I have to offer you is exactly aligned with what it is that the person in front of you wants. So that's a conversation. That's not a system. It's not about an actual, and people will often give sales scripts. And I think, well, that script is going to sound and look different depending on the person that's delivering it. So I also don't believe in scripts. I don't know if there was a script in the system that you were taught. Probably somewhat.
I don't remember, but I know when I did first start, I work for these guys that we were doing cold calls, which was so awful for me at the time. And I'm
Mhm.
sure I had a
Yeah.
script for that. I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, well,
and I
cold
would
calling.
imagine it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was just going to say, when you're doing cold calling, so often what people say is a sales can feel icky and it's really uncomfortable. And I always say, you're actually not selling when you're doing that. You're telemarketing. And if you think about a telemarketer, or you do talk about cold calling, you're kind of telemarketing more than you are actually selling. And so you think of, you're sitting down to dinner, you're ready to be there with your family, and the phone rings. And I think of the telemarketers that used to call me when I lived in an apartment building, and they would go on about cleaning my ductwork. And, I'm trying to find a space in the conversation to say, I live in an apartment. I don't have ducks, or if I do, the building deals with them. Like, I can't even get that out of my mouth. So here they are doing a sales pitch, which is really a telemarketing pitch, to someone who doesn't even have ducks in their house, right? So this is where we think about that selling that feels kind of icky and uncomfortable and just inappropriate. In that case, it would be something that's really inappropriate.
So you say it's about having a conversation, but what's the mindset behind that? Because usually there's some thing you hope for at the end of that. Maybe they're hiring you if it's a financial advisor, or they're going to the next step. So what's the process to be wanting to have a conversation, but not feeling like you're selling them?
Yeah. So there's a couple stages to this. And you talked about, I want to talk about how do we do this from a comfortable place? And just before we jumped on, I mentioned to you that I work on a completely different paradigm shift than what we are sold out there in the world, that growth is outside our comfort zone. And my way of teaching people sales is, what if growth is actually inside your comfort zone? What if I can take you back to a place where, and this is what we do, is get you really, really comfortable, first of all. Because when we go into a sales conversation, it can be really, really awkward. And we're trying to be a salesperson. This is why I say people don't need to be a salesperson. What you need to be is yourself. Now, there's a bit of an art to this, because it's like, how do we be that really enrolling, engaging version of you, which not everybody knows how to do. That's where the art of the art of creating engaging dialogue comes in, is this real understanding of, what am I really bringing to the table? Beyond the services and packages that your financial advisors are selling out there, like, what do they really bring to the table? And I want to ask you, actually, let me ask you that question, Ellen. What do you think you really bring to the table beyond your knowledge of financial advising? Like, who is Ellen? Like, who are you for people?
Yeah, I would say I'm not in that financial advising world anymore. So I'll talk about it from the world that I am in, which,
Sure.
now I'm doing a lot of training for financial advisors. And so I would say I am I bring a positivity and a calmness to things that hopefully raises people's vision of what is possible for them. I like to think I create the space for more inspiration and positivity so they can see a bigger vision of themselves.
Beautiful. So what's interesting is that what the question I asked you isn't really related specifically to a role. So I would imagine that even though you do that now in your role, could you say that when you were financially advising, when you were in that role, you also brought a lot of calm, peace, positivity, and encouragement for people to what was possible for them?
Sure. For sure. I like to say my superpower was helping people feel calm about their money, which I still do, but in a different domain.
So this is where we start with people. So when we can recognize exactly what is that thing that you do or you be, regardless of whether you're trying to accidentally, like if we were with a bunch of girlfriends and we were all talking about something, I would imagine you would show up and you would bring that positivity and that calmness and that, encouragement for what's possible for people to whatever conversation we were having. Is that true? That would be you, right? I bet you do it with your family.
I would. Yeah. I would like to think I would.
So this is where we start. We start with the fact that when you get grounded in the fact that that is one of your superpowers, that's where you show up to the call. So you start with that. That's where I want people to start. You get really grounded in, what is it that I offer people as just me, as an individual first, before I try to sell them anything. Now, how do we make that a conversation? The conversation is, okay, I'm going to come with my superpower. I know I can bring some calm, some peace, some positivity to this if you're Ellen. Now, for everybody listening to this, I hope you're thinking of what is your own superpower that you bring, because it's going to be different. And then you know all the offerings that you have. You've got products and you've got services. You maybe have packages that you are considering for this person that's sitting in front of you. But that's the time, instead of trying to go into presentation mode about all of the offerings, that's when you get to get real curious about the person in front of you. And so that's when it flips to the conversation flips when you recognize now it's about them. I'm going to show up as me in my superpower, and I'm going to get curious about the person sitting in front of me.
And I imagine the person across the table from you feels so good about that, because we're so used to being talked at, or they're probably afraid of getting sold to. And I don't think many people feel really listened to.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because here's the thing that is common is that, so if you say I'm a financial advisor and I've been at it for 10, 20 years, and in my own mind, I have already decided what is good for the person sitting in front of me. And so I'm coming from that maybe assumption place of I know better than they do. And in most cases, you're probably somewhat correct. But once I can just stay in the curiosity of like, I want to listen to this person answer a couple questions, or I want to hear them talk, I'm going to start to understand what's really important to them. And even if I was right in my assumption, what's really important is that the person sitting in front of me presences it themselves. So when they can bring their own context to recognizing, so if you've got someone sitting in front of you that all of a sudden is saying, yeah, I'm really worried about the future, they bring that up, and then you can reflect it back to them instead of it coming from you saying, I know you're worried about the future. And you've got someone sitting in front of you going, no, not really worried about the future. I'm kind of thinking about, when I'm getting my boat paid off or something, right? You don't know what that is unless, and even if you do, it's better to have them, it comes from them, because then your conversation can be what they've just said. And what's a better way to have someone feel like they've been heard than for you to respond to something they've said rather than push something at them that you're thinking of.
Lisa, as you were talking, I'm reminded of the last conversation we've had, and I've quoted you on this many times since then. You had said, I'm 99% sure it was you, so you could take credit for this, even if it wasn't.
Okay.
That one of the things that advisors have that's so difficult is that they feel like they have to advise, and that just by the fact they call themselves advisors is really hard, because there is this tendency to jump in, well, I can help you with this, or I can help you with that, even in this, as you call it, an enrolling conversation.
Yes,
so,
definitely.
I want to go back to when you were talking about how growth is within your comfort zone. Because over the years, I've done lots of different personal development seminars, and it was always like, okay, how do you take a risk and step outside of your comfort zone? And I think the selling conversations can feel like that. There might be these beliefs we have, like, oh, I'm not good at sales, or whatever stories that we tell ourselves. So, and when you said, no, like growth and all this is within your comfort zone, it felt like a warm hug. I don't know how else to describe that, but like, really, it can be within my comfort zone is super appealing. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a juicy thing to think of, because here it is that what if we've just forgotten what comfortable means, first of all? I think often now we've been so sold this idea that in order to grow, you've got to be outside of your comfort zone, that it's made us almost believe that comfort is lazy, or it's complacent, or it's like binge watching Netflix on the couch all day long, which, by the way, when you're really exhausted, it might be comfortable to do that. Right? Most of us would not be comfortable doing that for a lifetime. But what is really comfortable for us? And when we come back to the awareness of that, and so I think even back to the question I asked you, is that it's really comfortable for you to encourage people and to bring a peacefulness and a calmness to people where there might be some anxiety. And so when you can say that's really comfortable for you, I bet you accidentally do that when you're not even trying. It's really comfortable and it feels really good for you. So from that place is where you can grow. So how can I actually just allow myself to be in that superpower in bigger ways, in more opportunities in every area of my life, there becomes this huge opportunity for growth in how you can show up in that. And I give you one more example because I was on a training call last week and I was asking each of the participants, what are you hoping to accomplish when you are done this training program with me? And one of the men said, I really want to get over being so shy and how inhibited I can be. And I gave him the invitation, and this is how I work with soul language, is to say, what if your shyness or your inhibition is actually your superpower? Like, it'd be uncomfortable to try to not be so, he's got a beautiful, calm, quiet energy. For him to be loud and excited and energetic is uncomfortable for him. But that's just not who he is. And so what if I said, okay, what if you could sink into that energy? Because see, the energy of this reservedness, we're going to call it reservedness, this shyness, it's a big band of energy. Now, on the negative side, if he's afraid, if he's coming from fear and doubt and being competitive with other people, the shyness will take him out of the game. It'll be a withdrawing. It'll be completely, I'm too shy. I'm not good enough. I may not be able to do this. The shyness can pull him out. If I can open up the access for him to recognize that when you come from a really loving, intentional place of your, this shyness, this ability to be a little quieter, to rest in the pause, what that looks like on the other side of the energy is actually a reservation. And in a sales conversation, when I'm training somebody like that in sales, I talk about the powerful pause. I want you to think about clients that you've had. And there may be financial advisors that's like me, speak really fast and they have lots of energy. And the client is like, whoa, you're like way too much for me. Now, say an advisor comes along who says, oh, I'm shy and I got to get over it. What if they sunk into that comfort zone and said, I'm going to allow this inhibited energy to create this beautiful space for my clients to share what they need to share, to feel like I'm listening to them. And when there's an opening, then I can bring in the comment, the advice, the opportunity, the perfect package for them. And it's just done in a really calm, sort of reserved, energetic way. Now, that wouldn't work for me because that's not my energy. But that's going to work really well for him because it's so real. It's so true to who he is. He just gets to recognize, that's why there's growth in there. Because if he's always allowing it to take him out of the game, he needs growth. He needs to step into it more, sinking into that energy, not trying to run away from it.
That's so cool. And it must feel so much more authentic for people and less scary, like, oh, I have to do this thing. I have to make these sales calls. And
because there's an energy. Yeah, there's an energy type. So when I work with soul language, there's seven archetypes and there's 7 aspects and 49 characteristics. It's really, really deep in terms of the layering of it. The basics of it is that there is one particular archetype that people would say would be the archetypical salesperson that you might think of. And their energy has a lot of passion and energy, and they're really convincing just because you can just feel how much they believe in what they're selling. And that's beautiful. And a lot of courses will try to teach you to be that way. And it works for one archetype. But then there's all these other energies out there going, I just can't seem to do that system. It just doesn't work for me. It feels icky. It feels off. It feels uncomfortable. Yeah, it's not your energy. It's not your energy. It doesn't mean you can't sell. Doesn't mean you can't sell.
So let's talk about the fact that, you've said that everybody's really in enrollment conversations. Everyone's in sales. I think advisors are probably pretty aware that they do need to sell as part of their business to grow it. But what might that mean that everybody's in this when people think about their teams or people that work with them? Can you talk a little bit more about that, Lisa?
Yeah. So for me, sales is just a piece of an enrollment game that I believe life is an enrollment game. So anybody out there who's got teenagers knows that they need to enroll their children into believing that there's value in cleaning their room or value in studying when they never think they'll use algebra another day in their life. I mean, there's an enrollment game when we're trying to get get the spouses to, be bought into organizing the garage for the weekend. We have an enrollment game. I mean, it's everywhere when we're trying to enroll people into, what is it that we want, to accomplish. So that's what I say a little bit, like life is an enrollment game. When you're a leader and you're leading an organization, you are enrolling the people in your organization towards the vision and the mission of the organization. Now, for financial advisors, you have a small team. Say you've got somebody, well, who would be a couple people on your financial advising team? Give me a couple roles.
Might be an admin that you have, depending on how big your office is. Maybe you have, I hate this term paraplanner, but someone who helps write your financial plans. And yeah, it depends on the size of the firm, but it might be client services manager,
Perfect.
Maybe a marketing person.
Yeah, and client services and admins are great examples of people that technically don't sell. However, their way that they interact and enroll clients will also support whether or not your clients stay with you while they buy more services for you, whether a small client becomes even a bigger client. And so they are part of your sales team. Now, what's important is to recognize that their energy, and especially if you're an advisor and they're your admin and they love being an admin, their energy is probably very different than yours. So it isn't that you want them having conversations with clients in the same energy that you're having it. It's, can we give access to them to have so for example, not all admins come from the energy of a nurturing, supportive energy. However, some of them do. And so if their energy is dominantly, they just need to support people. They just love being that person that can provide all those pieces that nobody else wants to do. And they are always coming to the table and supporting. A supportive role can also be a great salesperson. Their conversations are coming from the angle of they're looking to see, how can I support this person? What is going to support this person? How are they going to feel heard and seen by the way that I support them? It's a little different than the way that an advisor or a leader would lead someone. Can you see the difference in the energy?
Yeah. And I think back when I had my team here, I had clients commenting all the time that I had such a great team and they felt supported by them. And I would say I was not deliberate in terms of training them to be having some kind of enrollment conversation, but I know they felt cared for by our team, and that certainly helped my business.
So again, if you're in that sales conversation, whether your admin is there with you, probably not, but if they were in there and we get to a client who's making some decisions, and you've got someone sitting in front of you because they have a soul language as well, and so what their needs are a little bit different. But if they're, delaying on making a decision and they need to understand something else, they're missing a piece. Someone who's actually in a really supportive position may actually be able to see that more. It's like, oh, what would support them in making this decision, right? It's not a matter of like, I need to tell them to make the decision, right? Because sometimes when we're in the advising, leading, guiding role, it's not as easy for us to recognize they don't actually need to be told what right now. They just need some support. And actually, if I gave them a little bit of information, they might be their soul language energy may be in needing to convince themselves. So your support person might be the perfect person to provide a piece of information that that the advisor has said, look, we've got information on this one. You know what if we just give them some information? This person might need to just sit and read it themselves for a little bit. Maybe they need to convince themselves, and all we need to do is support their ability to do that.
Interesting. Yeah. So when we had our conversation last spring, everything was just shutting down. As I mentioned at the start of this, we've kind of settled into things, but it's unclear how things are going to shake out once things reopen up. How do you think that this global pandemic has shifted the way we do business and how that might affect sales in the future?
Well, what I think is that the biggest piece for me about the pandemic is that I believe it's just put a giant magnifying glass on things that maybe were just a little bit under the surface before. And more now than ever, we've been asked to really consider what is essential. And so everybody's going through that piece, right? Because governments are telling us what's essential by closing everything else that they say is not essential. And I think the conversation needs to switch, definitely between the advisors and their clients, between really understanding what is essential for them. What is that they really, really want? Has that shifted with the pandemic, or has it maybe just been magnified to recognize that, okay, I was okay with all of this before, but now that everything's sort of under this new lens, what really is essential for what I want for my life moving forward? Like, is I really about security? Is it more about, what is it about? It's not going to be that for everybody. So I just think this conversation gets to get really real. And when the advisors can be really essentially bringing to the table the core of who they are, and you're going to scare away some clients, by the way, right? Because some people may not want an advisor that's their positivity, calm cheerleader, because that's not what they need. Some people are completely calm with finances, and what they want is more of an assertive leader that's going to lead them. That's a different archetypical energy. And so your energy might not match that person or anybody. I know you don't do that right anymore, but your other advisors that have similar energy to yours may lose clients that are really looking for someone that is more in that energy naturally. Great. Because that's the perfect advisor for them. And then you're going to attract all of the people that actually really need that core essential energy. When the more you show up in it, the more people will be attracted to you.
And I would say the more loyal they'll end up being, because it's such a good fit for both of you. They're going to be easier to work with.
See?
Yeah.
Comfort zone.
It's
going to be super comfortable.
So in the last couple of minutes we have together for this conversation, Lisa, and we'll have you back, of course, is there any unique recommendations you have for advisors specifically for this industry that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I would say, there's even more of a reason to really sink into getting really clear about how you can sell from this place of whether you want to call it soul language or not, but really from your natural essence. Finances are one of the hot areas where people can have a lot of fear and anxiety, and they show up uncomfortable in some ways. And so for me, I'm like, financial advisors, I know selling feels like, okay, yeah, that's sort of secondary to what my real genius is. However, when you can really get clear on this piece, is that, that, I mean, as advisors, I don't have to tell you that people have energy around money, right? Whether they have a lot of it or they have none of it, there's always a lot of extra energy around money. And because of that, then their fears and their anxieties and everything are going to be raised to the surface. And so for me, I think it's even more important for advisors to really start matching this, really showing up in their energy and recognizing like, hey, one of my strengths isn't just that I have these products and services. It may be that, if they have a scholarly soul language energy, it is about knowledge and expertise. The fact that you have like strong knowledge and expertise, there's going to be people that very thing is what's going to, dampen down those fears and the anxieties and all the pieces. So I would just don't underestimate that, because the scholarly energy advisor may assume that every advisor is naturally in that energy of just knowing everything the way they do. And it's not true.
Yeah. And I would say, actually later this afternoon, I'm doing a webinar on finding your superpower. And to just what you said, like I used to think every advisor made their clients feel more calm, because people come in with, and I didn't realize that was a superpower of mine. And I would not have been like that. I think I'm smart and I know how to learn things, but I wouldn't be the scholarly salesperson. Like I haven't done this.
And there's an energy, right? So the warrior energy is a fighting energy, but it's someone who has stamina and perseverance, and they're going to come across to clients like, I'm going to work my butt off for you, and I'm not going to stop. I'll go hours and hours and hours to find you the best place to put your money. And there's this like fighting energy of conquering them, right? So it's very different than the scholarly energy. So you think advisors all have advisor energy. It's not true. They all advise as a doing, but their being is different. And the energy there is what I'm asking to tap into, because you already know how to advise. You've been doing it for years. You know how to be a financial advisor. The question is, are you really clear on the underlying energy that's really attracting the people that just are dying to work with you?
Yeah, beautiful. So Lisa, if I know you have an offer for people, which anyone listening to this, whether you are a financial advisor, I know there's people that listen to this who aren't, maybe you're in financial services, or maybe you're another kind of entrepreneur. how can people get a hold of you?
The simplest is just reach out. I think it's simplest with my email, which is lisa@lisadad.com. It's DADD for dad. Pop email. And if you're interested in having me just kind of give a quick review or consult on your sales process, or even trying to tap into that natural energy of yours, then email, I'll send you a link to my calendar.
Yeah, and go ahead and do that. Go on to at Lisadad with 2Ds.com. And it's a really generous offer to have a conversation with her. Lisa's so good at what she does. And I'm so grateful for you being here. Thank you. And
yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you'll be back for sure. And for all of you listening, if you are available this afternoon and want to come to finding your superpower, which is finding your unique edge, and it's different than Lisa was talking, it's aligned, but it's really how do you stand apart from the competition? Please join us. If you go to news.horsesmouth.com/edge, you will be able to sign up for the webinar today. And if you can't make it, you'll have access to the recording, but I hope you'll be there. And then, as many of you know, we're doing the Extraordinary Advisor Masterclass again starting April 1st. People who were in this class had such great results in terms of increasing their influence and their impact and their income. One advisor grew, since that course last fall, grew her AUM 35%. I'm not promising that will happen to you, but people got results in areas that they weren't expecting. And we have a great group of advisors that are going to start with us. So if it's interesting to you, go ahead and check that out. And that's at horsesmouth.com/masterclass. And as always, I'm so grateful that you've joined us here. And the question to ponder today is, how big of a positive impact are you willing to make, and to do it within your comfort zone? And that's where, as Lisa told us, we're going to grow. Remember, be great.